Chapter 20. It took a long time for everyone to settle down. I held the meeting up on the pink vinyl counter at Kit and Caboodle in front of the mirrors and hairdressers' sinks. I counted the faces. Felix, James, Sue, Rosie, myself, and Spike. Is everyone present? Sue was the hostess. I don't know. Are we waiting for Pickles? Spike checked the window. He said he was coming. Pickles appeared through the open window. Pickles is coming, and Pickles is here. Thank you for waiting. I'm coming from work. There was terrible traffic. Hello, hello. He took a seat next to the beautiful Rosie. How was the liver? He asked her. Good. The liver was lovely, she told him. Hey, could we please come to order? I ordered. Please. We're on a terribly tight schedule. It was practically 7 o'clock. I circled the counter. We all know the plan. We go to the theater, we get the key, we rescue Sandy. Spike raised a paw. Are there any baseball bats in the theater? Not that I know of, I said. Then go on. The key to the crate is in Casey's jacket. Casey's jacket is left in his dressing room. So we have to get to his dressing room while Casey's up on the stage. And how do we know when he's up on the stage? Felix was frowning. We listen and learn. We wait for his solo. It's a big production number called Sarah Linda, and it happens at 7:40. And that's the only chance that we've got? James didn't like it, not that I blamed him. But come intermission, I told him, Casey was meeting with Slow-Mo to give him the key. And after the curtain, I said. It's curtains, Pickles finished. And Slow-Mo who? Slow-Mo Dvorak, I told him. Ha! You think he is related to Sviljic Dvorak? Sylvic Dvorak? A giant redhead. A nasty stinker is allergic to cats. He comes into the deli, and I'm sent to my room. The reason I'm asking, I think there's a brother. He's also allergic. He's also a louse. You think he's the brother? I thought that he was. I thought of the tablets on Slow-Mo's dresser. I thought of the sneezes, the giant hachoos that had ruined his windows and rattled his batting average, and certainly spared our lives. I thought of Slow-Mo who'd taken the pills, but they hadn't been strong enough. Not against 3. 3 in a room, and our scent overpowered him. Everyone giggled. Everyone scratched, and I called them to order. Okay, let's relax. The point of it is that we're not gonna meet him. Why would we meet him? We go from the alley and into the basement. And after the basement, I thought it over. I'll draw you a map. Map of the theater, I said. And suddenly dipped my paw in a can of grooming grease and passed it across the mirror. After I finished, I looked it over. Any questions? I said. There were, but I answered them quickly, nicely, and well. As long as you weren't rocketing off the edge of collapsing windows, it was easy to get to the basement. All it took was a basic leap, an angular curve to a stack of boxes, beautifully stacked like a flight of stairs. We had an instant family reunion. Felix and Sandy did some gruff macho batting between the hard, narrow slats of the wooden crate, but the moment was Rosie's. Such a feast of hugging and kissing, Pickles announced. I'm completely embarrassed. Sandy looked up. How can I thank you? I mean, each and every one of you. What a bunch. First we'll get out of here, Felix decided. Then you can thank us. I looked at the crowd. Is everyone ready? You know your assignments? Pickles and Rosie, you're staying here. Sue, I want you to sit on a box, she recited tartly, up near the ceiling and act like a guard. Boy, oh boy. She was ready to spit. You only told me 1,000,000 times. Well, I'm sorry, I said. Shh. James was pointing at the ceiling. Twin pianos started to play. I looked inquisitive. Sandy nodded. That's the intro. It's Casey's cue. He looked at all of us. Felix, Spike, James, Sammy. I think you're nuts. We simply ignored him and moved to the stairs, a kind of narrow and splintery flight that led to the light from the trap-door. The music was louder. I heard a voice. "I am not a pirate," it said. "I'm a prince, the Prince of Lawanda. I came in disguise." The sound of footsteps. A whispered sigh. "And before you demand I depart," this was sung, "I've come here to offer my heart. Oh, Sarah Linda, there could never be a—" "Psst," I said. "Come on." Sarah Linda, little princess, for you I'd leave my kingdom and my—" "Sam!" "Mother's blintzes." "What?" Felix pointed. "Sarah Linda is Mary Beth." "You'll talk to her later," I said. "Come on." I moved ahead to the top of the stairs. The music was louder. I leapt to the light. From where I stood I could see the wall of a wooden flat at the back of the stage. It looked almost like the back of a billboard. Sparkling lights seemed to float from above. James stood next to me, looking puzzled. Spike and Felix shot through the floor. "Is everyone ready?" I whispered. Felix looked unhappy and licked his paw. The singing continued. I pointed right, and we cat-footed into the wings where a couple of dancers were waiting to dance. We avoided them carefully, keeping a low profile on our tails, in a single file as we skirted past them. Casey's singing was brash and loud. "Oh, I have loved you, Linda, starting ever since I was in kindergarten. You're the girl that I'm agog for. You have got the kiss that I'd be. Spike, come a frog for." What? I didn't know, but something stopped me dead in my tracks in the narrow hall that led to the dressing room. Something iffy that curdled my gut. Something nasty. Something awry. Something that shouted of canned ravioli and terrible coffee and dreadful cigars. "I want you to wait," I commanded, "all of you. Stick to the shadows and close to the wall and be quiet as feathers." I padded ahead. The smell of disaster sang through the air like the shriek of a siren. I got to the door. It was partly open and bleeding light, and then I saw him. Slow-mo Dvorak, large as a lion, in Casey's chair. I turned and raced to the end of the hall. "Slow-mo Dvorak," I whispered. "No, Slow-mo Dvorak?" Spike closed his eyes. "He's waiting for Casey," I figured. "Meaning he isn't leaving," I said. "Unless—" "Unless we attack him?" James looked alert. "Unless we outsmart him." I narrowed my eyes and applied them to Felix. Felix the twin. "So what if Felix," I said to them softly, "what if Felix went into the room?" "He'd think it was Sandy." Spike got it first. "He'd think it was Sandy, and he'd think he escaped, and he'd get up and chase him, right down the hall." "And he'd probably catch him, right down the hall." James was impatient. "You want to get real? What you've got is a house cat. He's out of shape. He's getting a belly. He's getting a— Hey, I don't want to be insulting, Felix, but a pair of pantyhose could run faster. Let me go in for you." "James? You can't." I looked at him manfully, straight in the eye. "I think you're wonderful, James. You're terrific. You've got enough guts for a whole battalion. You've got enough spirit to—" "Cut to the butt," he said. "But," I said, "your nose is the wrong color." Spike looked up at him. "James, he's right. The tip of your nose is a beautiful pink. It's just that Sandy's is beautiful black." He squinted at Felix. "You think you can do it?" Felix was doubtful. "Actually, no, but I'm willing to try." He straightened his back. He did a few push-ups and looked at his nails. "Well, I'm ready," he said. "Goodbye." He moved courageously into the light. "'Tis a far, far, far better thing I do now." "But you simply do it," I said. He did. It worked terrifically. Slow-mo chased him, but Felix bested him, darting ahead as the other three of us rounded the doorway. Very quickly we scouted the room. Straight ahead was the lighted mirror, the counter with makeup, the rickety chair, and the peg with a jacket. One of those typical denim jackets with buttons and flaps. It took some teamwork to get it down. Teamwork and strategy. James, who'd always secretly wanted to be a director, stood on the counter and hollered the moves. "Hiya, Sammy! Move to the right!" Till we finally got it. James got the key and I noticed his nostrils. "What in the world?" "A pot of mascara." "And you stuck your nose in a pot of mascara?" "I wanted it black." "Well, you certainly got it." Spike grabbed the key. "Muff, fuff, 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 fuff," he muttered around it. "We all better hurry," I translated. Fuff. By the time we got back to the wings, Sarah Linda had turned into a big song and dance production number. Pirates leapt with their swords in front of a battle scene as ballet, while a seemingly terrified Mary Beth appeared to be melting in Casey's arms. This was hot stuff. Incredible drama. I couldn't believe that the audience laughed, but I heard the titter, and then the roar, and then I wheeled and examined the stage. Muff-fuff-fuff-fuff. Spike was aghast. There was Felix, right on the stage, right in the thick of the musical battle and racing in circles. He seemed to be lost. "Felix, Felix," I yelled at him. "Here!" But he couldn't hear me. The audience laughed and the music was blasting. I motioned to James. "So what do you make of it?"
"That's what I make."
He angled his head at the opposite ring where Slow-mo Dvorak stood with a sword. He wasn't acting. He wanted to kill. He looked like a Doberman held on a chain while a junkyard rabbit was raiding the patch. "We're in major trouble," I whispered. "Spike, get down to the basement and work the lock." I watched him leaving and squinted at James. "Get Slow-mo's attention," I told him. Right. He made a running dash to the shadows, disappearing in the back of the flats and reappearing in Slow-mo's path. I watched the action across the stage, watching Felix who ducked the swords of the thundering dancer who hollered, "Ho! Hey!" and "Hi!" as they whipped through the air and the audience giggled and Casey was shocked. James was cagey. He played it cool. He simply stood there and squinted at Slow-mo and yanked at his trousers, pulling the cuffs. Slow-mo reacted. It was one of those great, slow reactions. A double take. He lowered his head and looked down at his trousers. He lifted his head and looked up at the wall. He looked at Felix. He looked at James. He nodded numbly and went berserk. "Why, you devil!" he hollered, loud enough so that everyone looked to the left. He raised his weapon and whacked at the air. James went hurling out to the stage. The audience loved it. The audience whistled, shrieked, pounded, giggled, and stomped. James was startled and leapt to a tree that appeared to be cardboard and rapidly fell. Thwonk, thud, and the music continued, the dancers continued, the merriment built till it rattled the rafters. Slow-mo Dvorak made his entrance with waggling sword. He couldn't control it, he couldn't resist. He got to the stage as the pirates were leaping. He got to the center as the pirates collapsed in a flying finale, landing in splits with their weapons extended and hollering, "Ho!" The music ended. The theater was still. And there was Slow-mo, caught in the spotlight and swaggering forward. He suddenly stopped. He turned vermilion and lowered his sword. A few hundred eyeballs were barreling towards him. Casey observed him with riveted eyes, his head in an angle, his mouth in an O. He looked from Slow-mo to Mary Beth with her head in an angle, her mouth in a Y. Slow-mo coughed and said, "Never mind." Slow-mo stumbled back to the wings. James and Felix came hurtling out like a couple of acrobats out of a swing. I raced to meet them. "Come on, let's go." We started escaping, making it almost back to the lip of the trapdoor. As the curtain descended, the lights went out, the audience whistled and thundered and roared, and we got to the basement. We ran to the crate. Sandy was in it. He was still in it. Rosie was next to him, rubbing his nose and reviving his spirit. Spike held the lock, and Pickles was picking it. Sue was above, her inquisitive head angled down from a curtain. "Hurry, hurry!" she hollered. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" Pickles looked up. "Youngish lady," he said, "Shaw, you're making me nervous. I couldn't work, and you're blocking the moonlight." He bent to his task, and then suddenly, "Got it! Got it at last!" Pickles was grinning, Rosie was kissing him, Felix was licking him. Sandy was free. We got to the alley and jumped up and down. We jabbered excitedly, laughing and scratching, leaping and marveling. Then we were still. Slow-Mo Dvorak was swaggering towards us. Slow-Mo Dvorak, with murderous eyes and a snarling expression. We ran for the trees. The trees were a haven. The trees were salvation. The trees were the answer. And then came the scream. It was a total blood-curdler. I turned. Slow-Mo Dvorak had captured Sandy. Rosie'd hollered a cry from the heart, and I hurried to meet it. Everyone turned and went barreling forward. What could we do? Slow-Mo Dvorak was tall as a mountain. Sandy wriggled and clawed in his hands, but the hands were like iron. They lifted him higher. Higher and higher, a two-handed grasp that was ready to strangle him. That's when it hit. Casey's fist like the hammer of justice. Pow to the kisser. Pow to the jaw. Slow-Mo stumbled, and Sandy stumbled and landed terrifically right on his feet. And we ran and surrounded him. Rosie was first, embracing him tenderly. "Sandy, my love, my wonderful—" Pow! The battle continued. Slow-Mo was winning. Casey was down, and the two of them panted and rolled on the pavement. Light from the doorway, a terrified gasp, and a glittering princess. She raced from the door. "Slow-Mo, stop it!" she hollered. "Stop it! Casey, darling," she whispered. "Oh, somebody help me." I motioned to Sue. "Get Rosie to safety," I whispered. "Hurry! Get out of the alley! Get out to the trees!" I turned to the others. "Full speed ahead!" We raced to the battle. A battle of fists, growls, and punches, and serious men who rolled like a rolling pin down the alley. "All right. We surround them," I ordered. "Listen. Nobody fights them. I want you to—" Choo! Slow-Mo reacted, but not as I'd hoped. He continued punching. Another choo! He continued punching. It didn't work. He was clearly allergic, but not enough. Or not enough in the open air. Casey was fading. The princess was weeping. "Sammy! Sammy!" I turned and looked up. Sue and Rosie were galloping towards me. Sue and Rosie and 20 cats! An entire army! Where had they come from? Where had she found them? Where were they? Ah! Mephitabel waved at me. "Fro to the rescue!" She smiled at me winningly. "Hitty, you're swell. Get your troops to the redhead." They aren't my troops. They attended my rally. I waved them ahead. Wave after wave of them, calicos, Devons, Russians and Persians, Turks and Maltese, a united nations of wonderful cats. There were 28 of us now in a circle, and Slow-Mo reacted. A marvelous chew. Casey connected. Another chew, chew, chew. And Slow-Mo was out. Casey waited, sweating and panting. Everyone waited, holding our breaths and looking at Slow-Mo, who wasn't awake. Very carefully, Casey rose and turned and marveled at Mary Beth. "Did you call me darling?" he said. She nodded. Mary Beth in the mellowing moonlight. Mary Beth in her glittering gown. A happy ending. Sue was delighted. It's not the ending. I pointed to the left where the cops had come into the alley. City policemen with serious eyes. "Somebody called us," they said. "We heard you got some lunatic up on your stage." A happy ending, I said. Come on.